and their pictures clear so that we do know who is here.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
That's a good reminder of our norms. We go over those early on. We'd love to see your smiling face.
That's right. Well,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Lamb,
We'll
we're going to
make first and
go ahead
last.
and get started. We've got a lot to cover tonight, and we know that this has been a busy week, having town hall on Monday night, classes on Tuesday, and but it's necessary for the first few weeks of this program, and you'll understand why, and you'll appreciate why. We thank you for joining us this evening. Is a lot of information is going to be covered, and I want to preface it by saying that well, we have our 601 instructors with us, Dr. Hamilton, Dr. Revis, Dr. Crawford. I haven't seen him yet, but he'll be with us. Dr. Lamb, our supervisor, is with us as well. And Dr. Lamb, I don't know if there's somebody else that I'm missing or not that has joined us.
I am looking through right now.
See me.
Okay. Hey, Dr. Crawford.
Dr. Crawford, I don't know if we have Dr. Church or Dr. Bullis from the others. I invited them. They did not have a part on the program, and they both work, so I don't know.
Yeah,
if
they
were
may
able
join,
to
they
be
may
with
join
us
us later. But
Yeah.
we thank you for being here. The whole purpose of this session is to give you a global view of what the AAPSL, the first evidence, is. We're going to cover it. It's like we're giving you the whole elephant, because you need to understand the beginning to the end, what it is that you're going to be doing and why you're doing it. And if you get a global perspective of what it is, then when you go into task one and you're working on task one, it gives you a better understanding of why you're doing that, because you know where you're going next, and then after that. So we're going to present it all, and then we're going to come back and we're going to refocus at the very end on what it is exactly that you've got to focus on to begin with, because you can't eat the whole elephant at one time. We're going to start eating it in chunks. And so we'll refocus back at the very end on what it is that your focus needs to be on at this very moment. I want to begin by we've already given you this information, but I want to point it out again. This is what you can do right now. You need to go ahead and do your school profile, and you need to get that over with. Your school profile is going to be something that you will use consistently throughout the program in every semester. You may want to edit it at some point, but for the most part, most people keep whatever is approved from the beginning, and it will be the beginning of every one of the evidences that you do. And as a reminder, I just want you to look. And again, this is in the AAPSL helpful hints that was given to you, going over with you last evening. This is an example of what a school profile looks like. And is it the best? Maybe not the best, but it's a good example for you to follow. What you're doing, you're telling the story of your school. What does your school look like? Tell us what, give me, when I read it, help me understand, the community that it's coming from. There may be a history behind the school, and many of the schools, there is some of the older schools especially, there is a strong history connected behind it. Tell about that history. That is a part of the culture of those communities, and that's important as you talk about what your school is. In this, you need to also talk about what does the community look like. Talk about the demographics of your community. Give us some pertinent information about that, and then talk specifically about your school. Is it a small school? Is it a middle-sized school? Is it a large school? Talk about possibly the number of teachers, number of students that you have there. Anything that is unique that surrounds your school. If there are historical landmarks that surround your school or whatever, those are things that you can put in there. But again, remember, this is your story about your school. Now, sometimes you can go to some things that are already done at your school and you can get started with it. It gives you a start. Just like if your school has gone through accreditation, then, you know, it's going to be, that's at the very beginning of any accreditation report. It's going to be the school profile, something about your school. So those are good places to go back and look and find, you know, what it is about your school. Go to your school webpage. There should be something on your school website about your school and start pulling that information. But this is something that I urge you, go ahead and get this out of the way this week so that when you're working or next week, when you're really having to focus on task 1 of the AAPSL, because it will be due for our review by the end of the week, you don't have to concentrate on that. You can only you can only concentrate on the work to be done next week, and this will be over with. So let's go ahead and get this done. I'm going to stop share, and then I'm going to turn it over now to I think Dr. Hamilton has task 1 of the AAPSL.
I do have task 1. Greetings. I'm so glad to see you all. I am going to try to share my screen. Please let me know if you cannot see a PowerPoint entitled An Overview of the AAPSL Task 1. I guess you can see it. I'm not hearing anything.
Yes, we can see it.
Great, thanks. So as Dr. Stedman just said, you're going to start with your school profile, and this is something that you will keep with your work for the whole year that you are in this program. So go ahead and do a good job on it now. I used to work at a place that had a sign on all the doors that said DIRTFT. I didn't know what that was for a long time. And then I finally found out it was an acronym for do it right the first time. So just go ahead, do it right the first time. Take the feedback that your professors give you and just fix that up. And then that's something you don't have to worry about for the rest of the time, unless there's something that you decide that you want to add to enhance it, because everything is iterative in these worlds. So your school profile is the story of your school. It's going to help us visualize your school, the culture and climate of your school, and the community through which you are engaged and involved in every single day. And so the narrative description that you write about your school and your community will help us be able to visualize what it's like at your school. What does it look like? How does it feel? What is that community involvement? And as Dr. Stedman said a few minutes ago, some of you, especially at schools that have been around for a really long time, there is so much history to share and just great things to share. So make sure to include all that. What makes your school unique? What makes your school special? What makes your school stand out from the other schools around you? So make sure to share that as well. And then don't forget the demographic information, because that is a part of what your school looks like and how it's made up, student and staff information. And then you can include any data that you want to, like you're an A school, you're a B school, based on the North Carolina School Report Card, or whatever it is that you have to measure. And make sure to highlight all those things that you're proud of, and ask around, ask people who have been there for a long time. If you haven't been there, for historical information, get other people's perspectives, see what they think makes it a special place, and come up with a great profile for your school. So in task 1 of the AAPSL has 1 prompt. You'll see throughout the program that some of your tasks have more than 1 prompt, but the AAPSL has 1 prompt, which has 3 parts to the 1 prompt. The first part is your PLC research. This is a writing intensive program. It's also a research intensive program. So you need at least 3 sources cited in your research of PLCs. One of those sources must be Richard Dufour. He is one of the seminal people who did the work in PLCs, and we also always want to go back to our seminal works as often as we can, but he is one of the seminal researchers. And so one of your sources will be Richard Dufour, talking about the establishment of PLCs, the leading of PLCs, the tenets that should be involved in PLCs. You do need to follow APA 7th edition format, and think about descriptors from the research, and that's in bold, from the research. This is not a place where we want to hear about the PLCs at your school. This is not a narrative about what happens at your school. This is research. You are going to research so that you will know what good PLCs that can be successful are supposed to be comprised of. So you are learning from this research so that you can be a leader in your PLC and in your school. So this is not a place for a narrative about what happens currently in your school. So you're going to talk about what is a PLC, what does a good PLC look like, how are highly effective PLCs conducted, and then talk about the PLC norms and things like that that are important to include in your PLCs. Now let's talk about PLC. PLC is an acronym. So I can tell you a mistake I have on this slide right now. I have used, we're going to have a little APA lesson for 1 quick second. I have used the acronym PLC 4, 5, 6 times that I scan right now and see. So what I should have done is on the very first one up here, I should have written professional learning communities and in parentheses put PLC because I've used PLC more than 3 times. So as a result, I should have identified that as professional learning communities, PLC in parentheses, and then for the rest of my slide, I could have very easily written PLC because that is the APA formatting for the use of acronyms. So go ahead and learn that lesson right now. That's a good one to learn. And then you're going to conclude that first section on research with a description of your PLC design. So how are you going to take what you've learned in your research to design your new PLC that you are going to create in your school with your principal's permission? Then once you get the written permission of your principal to design and have a PLC, then you're going to select 4 to 5 members for your PLC. This is going to be looking at your school data, determining a problem, and then moving on in the AAPSL to what are we going to do about that. But you want to choose 4 to 5 people in your school who are there to support you in this endeavor, to help you in this endeavor, who is positive, a positive contributing member to what you are doing to you and to your school and your school community. Please, please do not choose Nancy the naysayer who is going to just drag you down because you don't have time for that, and you don't have time for someone kicking and screaming who doesn't want to be there and help you. You need support and help during this time. I know anyone you've probably told that you're doing this program, oh, let me know if I can do anything to help you. Hey, guess what? I've got something you can do to help me. So go ahead and grab that for those kind people who have offered. You need to document the criteria for selecting the PLC. So what do these people have that can be contributing to your PLC? You can identify those team members. You can list their names and their roles, or you can just list their roles. And then talk about why you chose them. What are these people's strengths? What are they going to contribute to your PLC? What are their educational credentials and things like that? How long have they worked at your school? So just give that a good, that selection process, a really good overview there. And then for the last thing that you're going to do in task 1, prompt 1, you're going to lead your first PLC meeting. Now, this is just going to be a simple meeting where you are going to discuss the vision and the purpose. And now that vision and purpose needs to be aligned with the vision and purpose of your school and your district. And so align those, what's our vision, what's our purpose, establish those meeting norms and expectations. That's very important so that we know if we are, I don't know why that won't go away, sorry, if we have those meeting norms and expectations so that we know how we are supposed to behave as a group. How do we interact with one another successfully? How do we behave as a group so that we can come in here, utilize our time wisely, and accomplish what we need to accomplish? Make sure that you're using, sharing the presentations digitally during your PLC. That's going to give you many of the things you do. You can use again, you can use it in your Competency Folio, you can use it in different places. So go ahead and do that. You can go ahead and maybe send the Google Slides out or the PowerPoint out in advance to give people in your team the opportunity to be front loaded so that they've had time to think and process. before they come to the meeting. And that's always helpful, just like it is for students to front load. And make sure that you're using your references and research to establish the elements of the PLCs. So from the first part, when you did your research, you can go back and even cite that in these other parts, that because research said whatever the team should have meeting protocols and norms, then our team established the following norms and protocols, or whatever. Add that in. Show the application. Hey, I read this, I learned this from the research. Now, this is how I'm going to apply that, and make sure that you are citing that. And then make sure that you're always checking your work. You're going to use APA 7th edition for your references. And so there will be a reference section at the end of the document where you'll have your references cited correctly, and you'll have a hanging indent. We will talk about all that next Thursday as well. Your appendices, so your appendices will come after your reference. At the very end, and at a minimum, you need that email with your principal, where your principal gave you an affirmative response that you can create your PLC. You could also upload your meeting agenda and minutes. Maybe they signed in when they came to the meeting. You could upload that sign-in roster. And if you can get someone to take a picture of what's going on, that's another great artifact for your appendices. And you can also use those things in your competency folio. So you can use these things multiple times. So that's very helpful. And remember that when you are doing your AAPSL or any of the work, there is a template in Blackboard, and you need to follow that template and make sure that you leave everything that's in black in there, and anything else like highlighted in yellow, that means you need to write something there, erase the yellow highlighting. And if it's in red, that's just a little like direction, and you're going to erase or delete the red type print. So that, in a nutshell, is task 1.
All right.
Okay.
Before we go any further, I'd like to interject. Thank you, Dr. Hamilton. Excellent. Dr. Hamilton alluded to 2 things in her presentation that I hope caught your ear. First is she will lead the group next Thursday in an excellent section on how to write an APA style 7th edition. Now, some of you, none of you are as old as Dr. Stedman, but some of you, it might have been a while since you've been in graduate school, and APA has changed. It used to be 3rd person passive voice. 7th edition is now 1st person active voice. I did that. We did the other. It's not that hard. She's going to do an excellent job with you next week. So don't worry about APA yet. And if you've used it in the past and you know that, oh, I did that, but I'm 2 or 3 versions behind, we're going to catch you up next week. So don't worry about that. The second piece that should have caught your ear is, as you probably already figured out, there are 6 evidences. This is a writing intensive program that make up the heart of your Tasktream portfolio. The AAPSL is the first of those 6 evidences. While you're doing the work, you should be collecting up pictures, screenshots, videos, things that show that you have done the work that you have done. Because in a couple of 3 weeks, I'm going to lead a session on Tasktream, and I'm going to teach you. It takes about 3 minutes, even as slow as I am. It takes about 3 minutes for you to create your own Tasktream competency folio. I've already got the template in there. You simply pick the design you want, cook a couple buttons, and you've got one. That will stay with you the whole time that you were with us. Now, I've already created your DRF portfolio in Tasktream where you put your evidence work. That belongs to us. I have to send it to the state. The beauty of the competency folio is because we have you create it, we've got the template, takes 2 minutes. It's yours. It is the best thing that you can have when you go to apply for a job. You can tell people what you've done, but when you can show them the artifacts, the actual proof of the things you've done, it is so powerful in getting a job. It will help you more than anything that we can do for you through the interview process to get that first administrative job. So start from the very beginning. Every time you do something, you create a document, an agenda, minutes. You have a PLC meeting, take the minutes, take a picture. All those things you can put in your competency folio that you own, that's digital, and that you can send a link to a prospective employer and it knocks their socks off. I'll just tell you that right now. So be thinking about, as Dr. Hamilton so aptly put it, be thinking about those artifacts, everything you do, collecting those artifacts. And you've got to have a minimum of 63. You can have 363. The more you have, the better. It's a great way to show what you've learned and the work that you've done in this program. Thank you.
And those somebody asked, what are the 6 evidences? They're in your scale handbook. All of that is explained in your scale handbook. So make sure that you take time to look through all of that and become familiar with that.
I'll go through them quickly just to give you.
Okay.
AAPSL is an analysis and action plan for student learning, where you will form a PLC and do a data dive, find your most pressing need, set an action plan to address an instructional problem in your building. Let me go ahead and tell you now, we won't be doing PBIS or discipline. That we'll do that later. This is an instructional program. AAPSL, analysis and action plan for student learning. It's not about staff development for teachers. We'll do that next. The next of the evidence is going to be the AAPTEL, analysis and action plan for teacher leadership. That's where you would do staff development. The third one is the OMA, organizational management analysis. That's where we will do the master schedule. The fourth one is school and community improvement plan. That's where we'll involve parents and other members, and we'll do an action plan to involve them in their child's education. The fifth one is the CAP. You'll do time, facilities, resources, teacher leadership, and school leadership from the teacher working condition survey in North Carolina and the cognitive survey or the state survey in South Carolina. And so if you want to do PBIS, that can be a 6th one that you choose to do of managing student conduct. But we do not do student conduct until it's time to do that. And the 6th one is the SOP. That is where you put together the first 5 and come up with a school improvement plan. As we were talking about in the preamble to this, please understand, we're teaching you the school improvement process of how you build a school that revolves around teaching and learning, that creates a culture of teaching and learning. If you're one of those people that don't think that student test scores don't matter, get out now. As a school principal, your job is to make a good number go up or a bad number go down. A good number being academic achievement, a bad number, poor attendance, poor discipline. That's your job. Numbers matter. That's why you have a report card. If it didn't matter, we wouldn't keep score. That's the whole purpose of the 6 evidences, is take you through every part of the school improvement plan, the academic piece, the staff development piece, the management piece with your master schedule, the community piece, the cultural piece on your campus. And when you put all those together, it becomes the document that has the how-tos. It's an action plan of how to go about creating a culture of teaching and learning in your building. The 6 of those, very quickly, I'll show you where they are. Let me share my screen.
Dr. Lamb, as you're sharing all that in the state of North Carolina, and yes, we want high growth, we want the best proficiency and all that for children and all that. But in the state of North Carolina, a principal's salary is based on growth and achievement.
Achievement, that is correct. And keeping your job, getting any salary, is based on growth and achievement as well. So when you go to Blackboard, thank you for reminding us of that. So when you go to Blackboard and you go to your course, and you just got a couple, I've got hundreds. You find your course, and all of them are the same way. We'll pull this one up, Dr. Stedman's shell. We have a section in all of them over here that has handbooks. When you open that one up, you'll see MSA Scale Handbook. And you can download it, or you can just open it from here. And what you will see, let me move this out of the way. You'll see the 6 evidences. The first one is the AAPSL. and all the tasks that go with it and the prompts. And you will also see the state scoring rubric. Please remember, all your work will be pre-graded by a state assessor in Tasktream. We do not wait till the end and send them to Raleigh or to South Columbia and hope. They are all pre-graded as we go, and you get the opportunity to fix them if they're not right. But your instructors and your coaches will not allow you to upload work into Tasktream that we know won't pass. That will not happen. You can see all of these are crosswalk with the standards. You will be prepared to pass the praxis when this program is over as well. Don't be the first student at Gardner-Webb that's ever failed it. We have a 100% pass rate. We're the only college in North and South Carolina that can say we've never had a student not to pass the administrative praxis. When you finish the AAPSL, you'll do the AAPTL. It's about teacher empowerment and building a professional growth plan for your staff. Again, all the tasks and prompts and the state grading rubric, how it will be assessed by the assessor. Now, your assessor is not known to you, and they don't know you either. They are simply hired to do the state assessments for Gardner-Webb. They will not teach you. They will not coach you. They simply evaluate your work on its merit. That way, we don't have a problem when these are submitted for your licensure. The third, as I told you, is the OMA, Organizational Management Analysis. This is where we build a legal master schedule for your school with all your federal programs and others. The fourth one coming up, and there's the grading rubric for it that the state assessor will use. The fourth one, evidence 4, is stakeholder and community involvement plan, the SKIP. You will have short and long-term goals to improve relationships and communication and involve your parent and school community in the education of their children. The fifth is the CAP. This is where you work on the culture of your building. You have 5 required areas of your survey, whether it's teacher working conditions survey in North Carolina or your Cognia or state survey in South Carolina. And the 5 areas that you will work on again are time, facilities, resources, teacher leadership, and school leadership. And when you finish it, there's the grading rubric for it. You will do the sixth and final one is the SIOP. That's the School Improvement Action Plan. It has 6 prompts, but we have a very detailed template that goes to tell you what part of the first 5 that you did to pull to put this together. And those are, folks, the 6 evidences of your Tasktream portfolio. That, along with your competency folio, your dispositional self-assessments, and our assessments of you, along with your competency analysis, where you check your competency 3 times during the program, that makes up your DRF portfolio. That's what's electronically submitted to the Department of Public Instruction in North Carolina and the Department of Education in South Carolina. And we've got a couple. We got one from Virginia and one from Georgia, and we'll submit those to their departments of education. And that's how that, along with your transcript and me signing a document or 2, will get you your license at the end of this program. And that's your union card to get a job. And so everything you need to know about this program is in this handbook. I have just finished the latest update last week. It is up to date. It has everything in here, the peer reviewing. It has how to use Zoom, how to upload your videos to YouTube and use the links. Here's the Zoom directions if you don't know how to use Zoom. Here's how to create a Gmail account. You have to have a Gmail account to use YouTube. And then here's how to use YouTube, create your own channel. Here's the APA style guide that we're going to be using that Dr. Hamilton and her group will be covering with you next week. Gives you some helpful pointers and gives you an example of what it's going to look like. All that's found in one handy dandy document. And so not only that, I have 2 shorter documents for you in here. I have your clinical internship handbook that speaks to the 80 hours that you do at your school each semester. What activities can comprise that 80 hours? I have one for you and one for your site supervisor. And it is an abbreviated one. I'll open it up quickly. And it tells about the program quickly. And it tells of the courses that you will have. Obviously now this is the 20-month 5-semester program, and what the 12-month folks, what they will have each time. Your clinical experience, it talks about the 6 evidences that I just outlined. The only thing that your site supervisor at your school has to do is sign off on your log each semester, and you log your 80 hours on this document here, or you can create your own. And here's the list of things that count toward those 80 hours. They're very comprehensive. We expect you to do them all. You notice that the leadership opportunities are the biggest group. The technical knowledge, because assistant principal is a technician level job, you got to have a lot of technology skills. And you notice supervision is the last, the smallest group. We would implore you 60, 30, 10. 60% of your activities should be leadership activities, and we list them here. 30% should be technology, and only 10% of your hours, that's 8 each semester, only 8 of those should be supervision, like bus duty or ball games. You know, because there's not a very steep learning curve on bus duty. Just, you know, if you're in the cold part of the state, just wear a coat long enough to cover you behind and don't get run over. That's all you got to learn about bus duty. So we figure you can probably accomplish that in 8 hours. And then if you're in a virtual school, no problem. Right here, thanks again to Dr. Hamilton and her group, they put this together for you. If you are still, if COVID comes back, or if you're in one of the, we got a lot of folks that are in virtual academies. Here's the list of things that you do to get your hours if you're virtual. And if you switch during the semester, just switch lists. Not a big deal. But you got to get those 80 hours. That's a state requirement in North and South Carolina, Virginia, and Georgia. You got to get 80 clinical hours at your school every semester that you're in the program. And right there they are. And right here's a little handy dandy guide where you can find artifacts. Just like Dr. Hamilton outlined for you a couple things, that email permission from your principal, that's an artifact. Agenda, minutes, pictures of your PLC meeting, those research abstracts she talked about, and that presentation that you'll do, those are all artifacts. Look at there. And we've got a map for every one of your evidences where your artifacts are. And then for your open-ended, we actually do those. That's from what you do at your school. And we've got those mapped for you as well. And so I'll stop my share. It's almost like we do this for a living. Everything is planned and prepared. If you will stay with us, we'll guarantee your success. Our on-time completion rate is above 90%. Let me say that again. We only dipped down to 85% during COVID. Our traditional online program completion rate is right around 92%. We never have anybody that just can't make it because they don't know what to do. If you stay with us, we'll be right there with you. Am I your CC1? I hope not, because I don't need to be traveling too much. I'm old. I can't drive at night. No, I have a group, but I have a group in Gaston County, so I won't be on the road this time. Dr. Revis will be on the road a little bit. Dr. Stedman, Mr. Ramsey in the eastern part of the state. Mr. Marie covers from Wilkesboro out the 40 corridor. Let's see, Dr. Talent does the Catawba Valley down 77 into Charlotte, and she'll do the Ridge, which is Columbia and Richland, Lexington. She'll do that area. And for the 3 of you in Charleston, we may Zoom with you, the one in Augusta and the one in Savannah. We may just Zoom with you. And the one that's in Seoul, South Korea, will definitely Zoom with you. Danville, Virginia, Mr. Ramsey is above Rocky Mount. He may make a school visit. If you want him to make one, he will. If you just want to Zoom, he'll do that. He'll give you that option. So CC1 just comes out to your school. The CC1 comes out to your school. They just make sure that everything's good getting your 80 hours. That's all they're concerned with. Now, your coach that's with your class coaches your portfolio, but your visitor, your CC1, just there to make sure everything's going to go okay for you to get your 80 hours. If there's a problem, you can call them and they'll come. I'm not getting hours, don't know what to do. You know, I've changed schools. I've got a new administrator. They don't know what I'm doing. They'll come out and sit down with them and explain it if need be. We need, but remember, we've taken all the old things that your principal used to have to do. We don't do any of that. They just got to sign your log. We've got the person hired to help coach your portfolio. We've got the person who visits your school. We've got the pre-graders from the state who assess your portfolio. Principals used to have to do all of that. They don't have to do any of that at Gardner Webb. We have somebody that does that. All your principal has to do is sign off on your log. Yes, I believe they did these 80 hours and they didn't get run over on bus duty. We're golden.
Thank you, Dr. Lamb.
Thank you.
Before we go any further, I want to go back to everything that Dr. Hamilton presented in task 1. That is what will be due for our review, not this Sunday, but by next Sunday. So that's where your major focus needs to be at this point. Starting with your school profile and working through task 1 of the AAPSL. What we're going to present from this point on is going to give you an understanding of what you're going to be doing for the next 4 or 5 weeks. So don't want you to get overwhelmed with it, but we just want you to understand what it is that you've got to do, but refocus back to what Dr. Hamilton has presented in task 1. Dr. Revis, task 2 of the AAPSL.
Good evening. Glad to be here with you this evening. I'm going to talk about task 2 of the AAPSL. And task 1, you're formulating and pulling together your PLC and everything that Dr. Hamilton talked to you about. Task 2 is what I call the data dive. Now, remember, we're not looking at attendance and we are not looking at student discipline. We are looking at student learning. And when we look at student learning, there are 2 huge resources, data sets, student performance and student growth. Okay, so that's how you need to get your PLC focused when you have your organizational meeting. We're talking about student learning and we're going to do a data dive. Now, this is not going to be in your first meeting. This will come in your second meeting. And the first prompt is where you're going to facilitate a discussion with your PLC to determine what strategies will be used to collect data, what data sets you're going to collect and who will collect them, and those kinds of things. Secondly, you're going to talk about and lead your PLC. Now, there has to be evidence, guys, that you are leading your PLC and facilitating these discussions. How are we going to identify our most pressing need? What process will we use to determine, to analyze our data sets? And what criteria will we use to determine our most pressing need? You have to show that you are facilitating a collaborative examination and disaggregation of those data sets. You're going to pull them apart. You're going to talk about what the data sets revealed as far as subgroup, maybe historical data, definitely growth data, and performance. And finally, you're going to facilitate a discussion to talk about what were the findings of our data dive. How did you determine the most pressing need? And then clearly identify the most pressing need. It may be 3rd grade reading comprehension. It may be 5th grade science. It could be as specific as particular strands within your curriculum, but you have to clearly identify with your PLC the most pressing need. The second task is The first task, you were describing all these things narratively. In the second task, you're just going to do the same thing, but you're going to use graphic representations. And I just have a few examples that I stole from Dr. Hamilton. You're going to pull up some of your school report card data, and you're going to talk about that briefly, describing what those data sets reveal. And those are just some examples. So you're in the first prompt, you're narratively talking about it. In the second prompt, you graphically talk about it. And then you end that second prompt by, again, clearly restating your most pressing need. Now, after you complete tasks 1 and 2, then you're going to schedule a meeting with your principal and or leadership team, and you're going to present your PLC findings. This is something that you do periodically throughout, the program. Is you're going to work with your PLC, and you're going to develop a plan, and then develop some findings, and then you're going to present the findings to your school leadership team. You'll need to develop an agenda, a PowerPoint slideshow. A video is not required, but recommended, but at least show a picture or get a picture of you presenting to your principal and leadership team. So that's a very, very quick overview of task 2, your data dive. Don't get into data analysis in task 1. Remember, that comes in task 2, and we will go over task 2 again on our Tuesday night sessions.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Revis. We're going to go ahead, Dr. Hamilton, if you will go ahead and introduce them to what task 3 is going to look like. And again, Dr. Hamilton, Dr. Revis, and I will place this under week 1 in Blackboard. These PowerPoint presentations will be there for your review in the future.
Correct. So this is an overview of task 3. So now in task 1, you did your research. In task 2, you have looked at data and you have identified your most pressing need. Now in task 3, we're going to come up with a research-based solution. So again, in task 1, you do your research. Task 2, you analyze data, find the problem, what's your most pressing need, and explicitly state that in task 2. Say, based on the data, our most pressing need is. Make that explicit. So you are going to start researching solutions to your most pressing need. And you want these to be research-based solutions. So if your most pressing need is reading fluency, and you do research and you keep on finding that repeated readings is a way to help build fluency, then that would be something. And you would, of course, cite that research, and that would also become a part of your references at the end. So you're going to do this, and you're going to take the solutions, plural, that you find. You need more than one solution. Take these solutions to your PLC. Then your PLC is going to collaboratively determine which of the research-based solutions would be most applicable for your school and your students for your most pressing need. Now, this is important too, the collaboration. As a leader, you have to be collaborative. Now, there are times, let's say, if it's a gunman in the front yard, that you're not going to have time to be collaborative. But on things like this, be collaborative, because then people are going to have buy-in, and it's going to be much more successful, and they're going to feel valued and important, and they're going to feel heard, and they're going to work harder for you if that's the case. So this needs to be collaborative. This is something else that for your work, before it goes off to the anonymous evaluator, that you want to make sure that you are explicitly stating that our PLC met. We went through these X, Y, and Z solutions. The PLC collaboratively decided that X solution was the best solution because whatever. Just keep that collaborative PLC. I took it to the PLC. We collaboratively decided. This is very important for your work. So in task 3, you get 2 prompts. Number 1 is the research. Again, you are researching solutions to your most pressing need. Now in task 3, you're going to have a literature review and an annotated bibliography. Now, these are narrative writings, and that's in prompt 1. And then in prompt 2, you are going to do visual representations with some narrative. So task 3, prompt 1, you're going to do research-based practices that are aligned to your most pressing need. And then you're going to write about what you find in that research through an annotated bibliography and a literature review. And we will go over the similarities and differences between those two things at a later time. But your best practice, your solution, needs to have some form of technology included in here that is not already being used in your school on this targeted population. So you're going to use the research to find a solution to your most pressing need. You will do an annotated bibliography, and in your annotated bibliography, you will have a minimum of 8 resources, 5 regular resources and 3 research resources of online tools you are not currently using. Now, these 8 resources, the 5 regular and at least 3 online tools, and you also see this when you can go back and look in Blackboard at the AAPSL sample, you'll see all this. The 8 and the 3 are research solutions and remedies to the problem you have identified in task 2 that Dr. Revis just went over with you. And then, you're going to do a literature review with, again, a minimum of 3 resources that are about the best practices that you're addressing as your most pressing need. So again, if it was about repeated readings, then I would have 3 resources about repeated readings. So here is an example of what an annotated bibliography looks like, and we'll look at that later. And then also, you're going to have 8 sources, 3 of which have to be technology related. And then your lit review is going to be in the very same format as task 1, prompt 1, your PLC research. That's what a lit review is. And you'll have at least 3 sources. And you can always look at the AAPSL example in Blackboard and also at the AAPSL helpful hints. So task 3, prompt 1 and prompt 2. Then in prompt 2, so prompt 1 is your research. Prompt 2 is visuals. And you are going to have a little writing, which you always do with visuals. So prompt 1 is that writing, that narrative. Prompt 2, the visual aids that you create, again, collaboratively with your PLC. It's always important to highlight that collaboration. So here's an example of a figure, and everything that you do in this class when you come like to graphs or anything like that, we're going to label it as a figure. So I'm just going to go ahead and give you a little front loading on APA 7 when we're doing this. So for instance, this is one of the annotated bibliographies this student had to do with their online, or maybe this is not, vocabulary. Yeah, they were looking at vocabulary, and probably most of you know that's an online vocabulary program that you can buy. So figure 10, left justified, it is Times New Roman, and it is in bold. And then the title is the vocabulary bubble map in italics, not bold. So you see they have vocabulary in there, and they have in their thinking map flow map, they have identified the strengths and the contributions that vocabulary would make to their most pressing need. Now, the one thing that's not right about this, note it should be in italics, but it should be a period, not a colon, because things change. And it just says the PLC worked as a team. Again, highlight that collaboration. To look up the components of vocabulary, we listed them on this bubble map. That's just all you have to do. Here's another example, and this, you really should include this at the end of task 3. So you'll have your figure, your title. And this student did this. They had looked at Mystery Science, Study Island, and vocabulary. And then they made the different parts of it that they were looking for to help increase their student most pressing need. Was it interactive? Was it standards aligned? Was it grade specific? You can see the rest of it. Is it affordable? Is it hands-on? Whatever. And then they went through and they marked each one to help them have a visual representation of which one of these 3 online tools might best suit their pressing need. So they put there. So your very last figure should be a comparison of all the online tools that you looked at with your team. So that's task 3.
And everybody should have that. We'll go over that again when we are going over task 3 and our classes. Dr. Revis, while you're getting ready for task 4, just a reminder, in all of your narrative work, remember you are the leader. I led the PLC. The PLC and I did so and so. You make it personal. You need to show always your leadership. It doesn't need to be, I did this, I did that, because if it's, I did this, you're not leading. You need to show that you are always leading your team. Okay, Dr. Revis?
Speaking of visuals, I highly believe in visuals. And so what I want to do just for a moment, you've been bombarded with a lot of information from task 1 through task 3. And task 4 is kind of the culminating event here. So I'm going to take this South Carolina framework for school improvement. I'm going to overlay the task of the AAPSL. What we are doing here is an action plan, like a part of a school improvement process, dealing with student learning. So in the first task, we're doing the research about what a PLC is and doing an organizational meeting. In AAPSL task 2, we're doing data analysis and identifying the most pressing need. In task 3, what we're doing here is we are looking at our research and we're aligning that research to our most pressing need. We are selecting a program or our strategies to address our most pressing need. When you get to task 4, that's when you start developing your action plan to address the identified problem. Task 4 also, in your action plan, you're going to talk about short range, long range implementation goals, roles and responsibilities. And in task 4, you're also going to look at indicators of success as you're monitoring. What are the formative and summative assessments that we're going to use as we monitor and move through this school improvement process? So task 4, the culminating activity is your action plan. Now, it doesn't start off with the action plan. I always like to show this as a graphic organizer first. You know, when we tell our students to write, we always tell them to start with a graphic organizer. And I just highly recommend when you start on task 4, use this action plan as your graphic organizer. You must use this graphic organizer. You can't create your own, but fill in your graphic organizer first, and then you can go back and start writing narratively. Now, if it's okay, Dr. Stedman, I'm not going to go through all these different pieces,
Right.
but what you're going to do is explain the action plan, okay? In
Yeah,
the second,
we're just giving them an overview at this point anyway. So
right, in the second part, you're going to share that action plan again, another sharing experience and presentation experience with your principal and leadership team. And then there's a little more narrative work. Again, what we're doing in tasks 1 through 4 is we are doing the process to build an action plan to improve student learning.
okay, thank you, Dr. Revis. And as Dr. Crawford is getting ready for the 5th task for the AAPSL, Dr. Lamb, I'm going to ask you, after Dr. Crawford talks about the competencies for task 5 of the AAPSL, that if you would lead into the 21 competencies that, you know, close out with the required every semester and how they will do those. Okay. Okay, Dr. Okay, Kim, while he's getting there. Okay.
Yeah, just mute everybody and then
Okay.
Dr. Crawford can
Dr. Lamb,
unmute
go
himself.
ahead and start on task 5. And then if Dr. Crawford joins in, you can do task 5 and then lead into what the competencies are going to look like each semester.
All right, so when you get to the last task in each of these evidences, you're going to write competencies, and basically you're going to tell us what you've done during the execution of this evidence to make you competent in either half or all. For the semester, it's all. They go by halves on each of these evidences. What you've done to become competent. So if we go back to our, let me share my screen. If we go back to our competency handbook that I had up just a minute ago, and I'll pull it back up here. I'll pull one up. Let me quickly do that. Oh, I can do it from here. There we go. There are 21 North Carolina competencies for school executives. It's the same for every state. These are the 21 things that you must become competent at during your MSA program. And they're pretty self-explanatory. And if it's not, we've got an explanation of each one of these. So at the end of each of the evidences, you've got to reflect back and you've got to tell us what you've done to be competent in, there's 13 that go with the AAPSL and they're identified. I think you can think 8 are required and the other 5 are, so you get to pick. But anyway, it's in the directions which ones you pick or which ones you use. But for communication, effectively listens to what did you do to work on your competency or to be competent at communication, change management, conflict management, on down the line. You have to narratively explain to us in the last task of these evidences what you've done. This is a narrative. You're arguing for competence. You're explaining what you did to be competent in this area. Now, please don't confuse competency analysis, and that's what this is, with your competency folio. Competency folio is the proof that you did what you said you did. It's a theme, it's an agenda, it's minutes, it's a picture. It's the data that you pulled up. It's a snapshot of your report card. It's the thing. Artifacts are things. That's competency folio, artifacts that prove you did what you said in your competency analysis. Analysis is a narrative where you tell us what you did to be competent in these 21 areas. That's the competency system. That's the overarching idea here is you learn to build a school improvement plan, but while you're doing that, you become competent in these executive competencies. You build your personal toolbox. So you've got to tell us. So you're doing two things. You're learning the school improvement plan process, but you're also developing these competencies within yourself, which is a requirement of any MSA program, that you become a competent person, not only as well as a knowledgeable person in school administration. So if we look at task 5, let's do that right quick. Let me get that one up. AAPSL, task and prompts. All right. So for task 5, let's see what it says.
Hey, Doc, I'm back.
Will reflect on the AAPSL experience. And so, but 21 counts. So you do 12 and you do 8. You do 8 and then you get to pick the others. And it's Dr. Crawford will pick it up from here.
Hey, guys, that is not at all embarrassing. I apologize. My desktop locked up on me. So throughout the semester, oh, Doc, can I share my screen? There you go. Okay. So throughout the AAPSL, you're going to be working on a total of 21 competencies. Pull those up so you can take a look at them. Yeah, got it. Okay. So throughout that, the idea behind looking at the total, the competencies when you get to task 5 is here at the end, what you're going to do is you're going to combine not only a little bit of research, not for all of them, but you want to reflect upon exactly how your work throughout the course of working through the AAPSL, how you were able to incorporate the work that you were doing under each of the competencies. And so with the competencies, that might be a little small, but again, communication, change management, conflict management, creative thinking, going through customer focus, delegation. Here where it says dialogue inquiry, I know they have it listed there as a slash, as either or, as one, but it's either dialogue or inquiry. So there should be 2 there if you choose to do that one. You also have environmental awareness. How do you demonstrate a global perspective? Going through ethics, responsiveness, how do you demonstrate results orientation? So you'll go through all of these. I think you do 9 the first go round, and then you pick up the other 12 as you are finishing up the AAPSL.
It's 12 the first go round, and
12
then
the first, right.
and
then
9
9 for the AAPSL. That's right. So you'll choose. So there's 8 you have to choose, 4 you get to choose for yourself when you're doing the AAPSL. And so what I did on this slide here was I wrote this one. Let's see if I can make that a little bigger. I actually took time management, and based on where I was sitting, based on the school I was at last year, I said, well, if I were using what I'm doing right now, I'm going to pick one of the competencies, and how would I write this up? So again, the idea is to write it up in a way that demonstrates what you did to engage in that skill. So in this situation, I probably went a little over the top with this one, but it's actually not made up. This is actually exactly what I was going through at the time. So I was sitting as a principal, did not have an assistant principal, and I focused on the fact that as a principal, I am legally required to evaluate all of my teachers. But coaching is also very, very important. And so I kind of talked through the evaluation process, how I went through it with, emailing people exactly what the steps are going to be. I tried to give them dates about what was coming. When I wrote this, I had 3 beginning teachers in my building. And so I wanted to focus on the fact that, with them, guys, here's my list. I told them I deliberately put you guys toward the end of October, toward the end of this first round. And then I, said, because I'm going to have the curriculum facilitator work with you. I'm going to have the math coach come in and work with you. Just so we can get them, comfortable with the process and not just jump right into being, evaluated right off the bat, knowing that as a first year beginning teacher, it's not going to be the best anyway, but it's my job to go in, not only to evaluate them, but to find opportunities with which to coach them. The other thing, as you go through this, and again, as we get to this point, we'll be able to work with you more, is that as you come up with some of these, they may fit in other categories. So as I looked at this one, I wrote it from a function of time management and dealing with the evaluation process. But the way that I wrote it, I think it could very easily also have fit with judgment. It could easily have fit with communication, change management.
I love it for organizational ability.
Organization.
Wow.
Right.
That was a perfect one for organization, how you organize. That was wonderful.
So again, I just kind of gave you an example of how I would have attacked this one. So now with all of these, no, you will not have to have a research component with all of them. We would like to see of the, 12 in this case, 3 or 4, I think, with the research component. So you can always weave that in. And so here I was able to find an article from Olthoff. I think that one focused specifically on the difference between the fact that there is no research out there that suggests that evaluation grows teachers, but there's all kinds of research that suggests that coaching, good coaching, directed coaching grows teachers. So that was my research piece for that one. And then, of course, the general statute. And then just here at the end for, and accomplished on this one, just kind of gives you a breakdown of what you need. So the narrative, again, that reflective piece, this is what I was able to do to address that. Again, you get a description of the experience. Did you handle an email? Did you intervene in a conflict between 2 teachers, a teacher and a parent? Did you come up with a new bus schedule where you moved the buses from the that had the farthest to go to the front of the line so they can get out of the parking lot? So those are those things that Dr. Lamb was talking about. And so I don't want you to worry about, well, oh my God, how am I going to collect all this? You will, without question, through the normal course of what you're doing over the next 15 weeks, collect all manner of stuff. Your job is just to make sure that you keep it organized, much like you do as teachers, and you're thinking of the 6 competencies in NESIS. You kind of drop different things that you do during the normal course of teaching. You're going to do the same thing here. So again, you have this research, you have this example. I'll send this to Dr. Hamilton if you're in our group, and Dr. Revis, so they can post it. Again, this is kind of how I would have written that one for that one. And so that's how you're going to tackle that for the AAPSL. Dr. Land, again, folks, I apologize. My computer locked up on me right as I was hitting share screen. So I apologize.
No problem.
it did.
Things happen, Dr. Crawford. Thank you so much. And again, I want you to remember the purpose, again, for showing you all of this. You need to begin the AAPSL with the end in mind. You need to know what the culminating work for the AAPSL is going to be as you are beginning it. So now I want us to go, and those competencies, the 12 competencies that you've got to do for the AAPSL, you need to be thinking, go back and you need to look at those competencies and be thinking as you're doing task 1, task 2, task 3, and task 4. Begin thinking about those competencies and how you're going to meet them this semester. As you are doing your clinical internship work, think about, how am I going to meet those competencies this semester? So you need to begin identifying those and begin charting your course with those competencies from the very beginning. Now let's go back to the beginning. I want you to remember everything that has been said tonight, but I want you to focus on what Dr. Hamilton shared with you in task 1. Task 1 is your main focus at this point. Remember, we started by telling you that you need to begin with your school profile. You need to go ahead and talk with your administrator if you have it. Let them know what you're being tasked to do, that you've got to do a PLC. You need their permission. You need to begin thinking about who's going to serve on that PLC. Begin asking them to serve and begin pulling that information together. Some have gotten, remember, that is not due this week. You get started on it this week, but it will be due not this Sunday night, but next Sunday night. And we're going to go over this with you again on this Tuesday, but you can't wait until Tuesday to get started on this. Okay. Dr. Revis, Dr. Hamilton, Dr. Crawford, anything in closing before I turn it over to Dr. Lamb? Okay.
Yeah, we mentioned this. I'm sorry, I mentioned this to our class on Tuesday. I just want to remind everyone, as you're coming up with your school profile, remember you're going to have a lot of information in there, but you also want to be mindful of citing information that's not common knowledge.
Right.
So you're going to come up with stuff like, the square footage of my county is X. I don't know who knows the square footage on top of the head. So where did you get that information? So just cite information that's common, that's not common knowledge.
Right. And Dr. Crawford, if you'll send your PowerPoint to Dr. Revis, Dr. Hamilton, and me, so we can put it in our course shells as well. And you will be able to find all this information under week 1 in Blackboard. Dr. Lamb, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you bring the benediction.
All right, I can hear just as I am playing in the background. It's time. That means it's time to quit. I will remind you 2 things that caught my ear tonight. You need to be collaborative, as Dr. Hamilton said. She's one of the most highly decorated principals in the history of this state. By the way, Dr. Crawford had the highest growth in the Triad area, and just got a big promotion there. These principals know what they're talking about. Collaboration and reflection. Those are 2 keys that you have for that's our benediction for the evening, is collaboration and reflection. One more thing before we close tonight, and this is always, I have to be the bearer of bad news. And this piggybacks on what Dr. Crawford closed with. I'm so happy that he reminded you to cite things that are not common. Please remember that at the end of the last thing that you will do with your evidences before they go to Tasktream is they will be turned in for originality. So we've got to cite our references. We got to make sure that our work is our own. We can't borrow from somebody else's. We can't go online on the internet and buy papers or get big chunks. These are going to be turned in, and we set a limit in terms of how much, what percentage that you have to come in under for each of the evidences. And so just understand that's a normal part of what we do, is that we do turn it in checks for originality before it goes to Tasktream. We can fix it while it's still in Blackboard and we're working on it. Once it goes to Tasktream and it doesn't pass, we're in trouble. So that's the last thing that you'll do before you upload it in Tasktream. So know that now. Get in the habit of citing your references. Make sure if it's not your own work that you cite it, and that you understand the difference between paraphrasing and plagiarism. Make sure that you know that you know, the honor code is in effect here. As I said, I hate to end on a down note, so I'll remind all of you that hang in there with us. 92% make it through, and as always, thank you for choosing Gardner Webb. We appreciate you being with us tonight. We'll see you all next week in class. Everybody have a good weekend.
See you on Tuesday. Everybody,
Right.
make sure you are completing the EVA enrollment verification activity for your course and for your internship shell. You've got to do 2 things. Go in there and show, and you need to say yes. Complete it and say yes. Okay? Thank you.